Imagine waking in the middle of the night with a pain so sharp it feels like a knife twisting in your side. You pace the floor, trying to breathe through it, wondering if something inside you has gone terribly wrong. For many people over 50, that nightmare has a name: kidney stones. These tiny crystals, smaller than a grain of rice, can bring a strong adult to their knees. What's even more surprising is that 1 in 10 Americans will experience them at some point, and millions more worldwide share this ordeal. I've seen patients, retired teachers, grandparents, devoted caregivers reduced to tears by the agony of these stones. But here's the hopeful part. Nature itself offers remarkable tools to help dissolve these stones and protect your kidneys. I'm Dr. Brian, and welcome to Channel Vital Science for Seniors. Today I'll show you how 9 natural remedies may change the story. When I think of citrus fruits, I often remember my patient Harold, a 72-year-old grandfather, who once told me that squeezing a lemon into his water was his small act of rebellion against the soda machines at his senior center. What Harold didn't realize at first was that this simple habit carried profound benefits for his kidneys. Inside each lemon hides citric acid, a compound that works almost like a shield against kidney stones. Imagine citric acid as a gentle buffer, coating the crystals that try to form inside your kidneys. Instead of letting them grow sharp and jagged, it slows them down, makes them less likely to stick together, and sometimes even dissolves them before they cause trouble. A study in the journal Urology found that people who received potassium citrate, a salt derived from citric acid, lowered their risk of new stones by about a third. Lemon juice, in its natural form, offers a similar benefit, without the pill bottle. Of course, the way you use lemon matters. Some traditions suggest mixing fresh lemon juice with a little olive oil, diluting it in warm water, and drinking it on an empty stomach. Others prefer the simpler habit of adding lemon to plain water throughout the day. Both methods work on the same principle. The more diluted your urine, the less likely crystals can harden into stones. Think of it as flooding a garden hose with enough water pressure that nothing gets a chance to clog the pipe. For older adults, especially those who struggle with high creatinine levels or early kidney disease, staying hydrated with lemon water can feel like a refreshing, natural safeguard. Still, moderation is important. Too much citric acid can irritate the stomach lining, so I always advise my patients to start small and listen to their bodies. Now let's talk about a remedy that has been passed down through countless kitchen cupboards: apple cider vinegar. Many seniors I meet swear by it. They say it helps their digestion, their joints, even their energy. But what's fascinating is how apple cider vinegar interacts with kidney stones. Its main acid, acetic acid, can weaken the bonds that hold calcium oxalate stones together. Imagine a cement wall exposed to steady rainfall. It begins to erode, chip away, and eventually crumble. That's what acetic acid can do on a microscopic level to a kidney stone. Over time, the stone becomes less solid, easier to break apart, and more likely to pass out painlessly in urine. I recall one patient, Maria, who carried a small bottle of diluted apple cider vinegar in her purse. She had suffered from stones twice in her 50s and dreaded a third episode. With my guidance, she started drinking 2 tablespoons of vinegar mixed in a glass of water once daily. Months later, when we reviewed her checkup, her imaging showed no new stones. Was it the vinegar alone? Perhaps not, but as part of a broader diet for kidney disease, low sodium, plenty of fluids, and careful attention to low potassium foods, it gave her both comfort and confidence. That emotional relief is often just as important as the science. Still, I always caution, vinegar is powerful, and too much can erode tooth enamel, upset the stomach, or even disturb potassium levels in the blood. For people already managing heart or bone issues, that imbalance can be risky. So my advice is to treat apple cider vinegar as a supportive tool, not a miracle cure, and to keep your doctor in the loop before making it a daily ritual. The third ally in our citrus and acid family is the jewel-colored pomegranate. Unlike the sharp tang of vinegar or lemon, pomegranate brings sweetness along with its healing. Within its ruby seeds are compounds called punicalagins, potent antioxidants that soothe inflammation inside the kidneys. When the urinary tract is inflamed, it's like a rough road full of potholes where crystals can easily get stuck and build up into stones. By calming that irritation, pomegranate juice helps keep the passage smooth, making it harder for stones to take hold. Animal studies have shown that pomegranate extracts can lower urine acidity, shifting the internal environment toward one where stones struggle to form. This matters especially for older adults whose diets may tilt toward more acidic foods like meat and processed snacks. A simple glass of pomegranate juice, 8 to 12 ounces, can offer a daily balance. I've watched patients sip it in the morning like a tonic, feeling not only refreshed but reassured. Yet even here, caution has its place. Pomegranate can interact with certain medications, particularly those that lower cholesterol, so it's essential to check with your healthcare provider. As I weave these stories of lemons, vinegar, and pomegranates, I want you to see a pattern. Nature's acids are not our enemies. When used wisely, they are sculptors that shape the harsh edges of stones into softer, passable fragments. They are reminders that the same fruits and tonics that nourish our taste buds can also protect our independence. Freedom from hospital beds, emergency room visits, and sleepless nights doubled over in pain. For those over 50, this freedom is priceless. It's not about chasing eternal youth, but about holding on to the simple joys of walking without fear, laughing without wincing, and living without the shadow of another kidney stone. When I first met Elaine, a 69-year-old retired librarian, she told me she had given up on beans years ago because they made her feel too full. Yet what surprised her during one of our kidney health workshops was learning how beans, particularly kidney beans, carry a hidden connection to the very organ they resemble. It's almost poetic, nature giving us a food shaped like the body part it helps protect. Kidney beans are packed with fiber and plant protein, which support digestion and help regulate blood sugar. But what makes them especially relevant here is their gentle diuretic effect. That means they encourage the kidneys to flush more urine, reducing the concentration of minerals that could otherwise crystallize into stones. Think of it like a mountain stream. When the water runs strong and is steady, sediment can't easily settle into clumps. A traditional practice in some cultures involves simmering kidney beans and drinking the broth. Though modern science is still unraveling the exact mechanisms, we know that beans provide magnesium and potassium in careful balance, nutrients that play a role in stabilizing the internal chemistry of the kidneys. Magnesium, for instance, can help prevent calcium from binding with oxalate, lowering the chance of stones. But here's where I always pause with my patients. Kidney beans also contain compounds called purines, which break down into uric acid. For those prone to gout, too much uric acid can trigger painful flares. So my guidance is to enjoy beans in moderate servings, about half a cup cooked, as part of a varied diet for kidney disease that also takes into account other needs such as low potassium foods when required. Now let's move to something lighter, something crisp and green, celery. There's an old saying that celery is mostly water with a crunch, but inside those pale green stalks lie flavonoids and phthalides, plant compounds with anti-inflammatory powers. In one observational study, women who consumed more celery had a lower risk of kidney stones. While that doesn't prove cause and effect, it hints at something worth noticing. In traditional medicine, celery was often used to cool the body, and in modern terms, that cooling may reflect its ability to calm irritation in the urinary tract. If kidney beans act like a steady current washing away sediment, celery works more like a gentle brush, keeping the inner surfaces of the kidneys and bladder smooth and less welcoming to crystal buildup. But I've also seen celery cause issues in patients taking blood thinners because certain compounds in the plant can affect clotting. And in those on sedative medications, celery may amplify drowsiness. So while I encourage my patients to enjoy celery sticks, soups, or smoothies, I remind them to bring it up in conversation with their doctors, because even the simplest foods can carry powerful effects. Finally, let's turn to basil, that fragrant herb most of us associate with Italian cooking or summer gardens. Beyond its flavor, basil carries antioxidants like eugenol and rosmarinic acid, which help neutralize harmful free radicals. Free radicals are like tiny sparks that, if left unchecked, can damage the cells lining your kidneys and set the stage for stones to form. Basil calms this storm. It also appears to reduce inflammation in the urinary tract, much like pouring cool water on a hot surface. I remember visiting a patient named Thomas, a 75-year-old widower who loved to cook. After his first kidney stone episode, he began adding fresh basil leaves to his morning smoothies. "It feels like I'm starting the day with both flavor and armor," he told me. For him, basil was more than just a seasoning. It was a daily ritual that gave him back a sense of control over his body. Some people brew basil tea, steeping the leaves in warm water for a soothing drink once or twice a day. While there's no strict dosage guideline, moderation remains key. Too much concentrated basil juice over time hasn't been well studied, and I always remind patients that balance, not extremes, is where healing usually lives. These plant-based foods, kidney beans, celery, and basil, show us something profound. The earth itself offers medicine disguised as meals. They're not exotic, not expensive, not locked away in some faraway pharmacy. They're humble, everyday foods that can become allies for older adults who want to protect their kidneys, keep their creatinine levels stable, and hold on to independence. For seniors who may feel overwhelmed by pills, hospital visits, or dietary restrictions, the thought that a bowl of beans, a stick of celery, or a sprig of basil could make a difference is both empowering and comforting. Each of these foods carries not just nutrients, but a story. A reminder that caring for your kidneys doesn't always mean giving up joy. It can mean rediscovering the taste of a garden, the memory of a favorite family recipe, or the comfort of a warm cup of tea. And perhaps most importantly, it means embracing choices that are gentle, natural, and sustainable for the long road of aging well. Some remedies arrive not from the produce aisle or the spice rack, but from traditions carried through centuries, whispered from healer to patient long before modern medicine existed. Among these, few names spark as much intrigue as Chanca Piedra, known in South America as the stone breaker. The first time I read about it was in a medical journal that described how villagers in the Amazon brewed the herb into teas for people suffering with kidney and liver problems. Later, a 2020 study followed patients with kidney stones who took Chanca Piedra extract for 12 weeks. Astonishingly, two-thirds of them saw their stones shrink or decrease in number. The science is still young, but the story is compelling. Compounds in the plant seem to interfere with oxalate crystals before they can harden into stones, while also easing inflammation that makes stone passage so agonizing. One of my patients, a retired school bus driver named Leonard, was fascinated by the name itself, Stonebreaker. After his second painful kidney stone, he asked if it could help him avoid a third. We discussed the research, the uncertainties, and the possible side effects, such as mild stomach upset. With his doctor's oversight, he tried a standardized extract. Months later, Leonard reported feeling more at ease, not because he believed in magic, but because he felt proactive, like he was fighting back. For seniors, that sense of empowerment can be as healing as any prescription. Still, I always remind people that herbs like Chanca Piedra are potent. They can interact with blood thinners and diuretics, and their long-term safety isn't fully known. Respect and moderation are vital. If Chanca Piedra represents the warrior, then goldenrod is more of a gentle guardian. This tall, yellow-flowered plant has long been used in Europe and North America for urinary tract issues. Its diuretic qualities encourage the body to pass more urine, which may help wash away small stones before they grow large enough to cause pain. Goldenrod also contains flavonoids that calm inflammation, easing the discomfort that often accompanies stone movement. I think of goldenrod as a stream that not only flows steadily, but also soothes the banks it touches, preventing erosion and irritation. Yet goldenrod's story reminds us that more isn't always better. Too much diuretic action can lead to dehydration, ironically raising the risk of stones. Research in humans remains limited, and so I present goldenrod to my patients as a supportive herb, not a standalone cure. It can be sipped as a tea, but always with the understanding that water itself, the plain, simple kind, is still the most effective natural stone preventer we know. The third herb in this family, Uva ursi, sometimes called bearberry, has a name that sounds almost playful, but its effects are serious. Inside its leaves is a compound called arbutin, which breaks down into hydroquinone, a mild antiseptic. Historically, it was used to cleanse urinary tract infections, creating a less hospitable environment for bacteria. Some believe that by calming infections and mildly increasing urine output, uva ursi may also reduce the risk of stone formation. Picture it as a quiet custodian, tidying up the urinary tract and making it harder for trouble to settle in. But here's the important truth. The evidence for uva ursi's role in dissolving stones is still thin, and it can irritate the stomach if used too long or interact with medications. For seniors who often juggle multiple prescriptions, those interactions matter. So while I respect the tradition, I advise using it sparingly and only after careful conversation with a healthcare provider. Together, these three herbs, Chanca Piedra, goldenrod, and uva ursi, offer a glimpse into how human beings have always turned to nature in search of healing. They remind us that medicine didn't begin in laboratories. It began in fields, forests, and riversides, with people observing how plants seem to ease suffering. Today, we can honor that wisdom while also applying the careful eye of science, asking which remedies truly help, which may harm, and how can we blend tradition with evidence in a way that keeps people safe. For older adults, especially those facing the fear of another stone attack, herbs can represent hope. Not false hope, but the kind that says, you are not helpless. There are options beyond the hospital bed and the surgeon's scalpel. There are gentle allies growing quietly in the soil, waiting to be brewed into tea or pressed into a capsule, offering their support. The key is to see them not as miracles, but as partners. Tools in a larger toolkit that also includes hydration, balanced diet, and medical guidance. I often tell my patients that healing is like a quilt. No single square provides warmth, but stitched together, they form a fabric strong enough to protect you. Lemon juice, kidney beans, Chanca Piedra, each is just a piece. Together they can help guard the kidneys, lower the risk of high creatinine, and preserve the independence that makes life after 50 worth savoring. If there's one lesson I've learned from decades of caring for older adults, it's this. Healing rarely comes from one dramatic gesture. It comes from small, steady choices repeated day after day. Kidney stones may seem like a random punishment, but in truth, you hold more power than you realize. A squeeze of lemon in your water, a bowl of beans at lunch, a mindful cup of herbal tea. These are not just habits, they are acts of self-respect, signals to your body that you still care for it and believe in its ability to thrive. Whether you've already faced the agony of stones or simply want to protect your kidneys from the burden of high creatinine and disease, remember that change is always possible. I'm Dr. Brian, and I believe in your capacity to protect your health at any age. Stay hopeful, stay steady, and never stop choosing life.